Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so today we are going to be taking a look at Unit 3, Lesson 7, something called Sprites. And what we need to be thinking about today is how can we use sprites to help us keep track of a lot of information in our programs, because our programs eventually is going to be a very simple platformer, two-dimensional scroller type video game. So there's a lot of code that goes into that. So how can we simplify things? Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So, Unit 3, Lesson Bubble 1, Lesson 7. So this program uses some new blocks that we haven't seen before. So remember how we have our toolbox. So now we have a few more drawers in our toolbox. We have this thing called World, Drawing, Variables, Sprite, and Math. So up until this point, we've only had the drawing and the math, and the variables we wouldn't have a drawer for yet. But now in our toolbox, we have 5 different drawers. Okay, so with your partner, we're going to read the code and discuss how you think the code works. Change some lines and see what happens. What do you think each line is doing? All right, so let's take a look at this code, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Get rid of that. All right, so what do you think we're going to see, guys? Anybody. You can put it in the chat. You can put it, unmute and say it. Take a look at the code. What do you think we are going to actually see? Anybody? Anybody at all? Totally talking to myself. Take a look at the code and tell me what you think is going to appear on the screen when I run this code.
Fruits and vegetables.
Okay, cool. Specifically, what type of fruit and vegetables?
Carrots.
Carrots. All right, cool. Let's see what happens. And there we have vegetables. Yay! Now, this is weird because it says candy, carrot, vegetable, carrot. So remember how it said to change some things? So I'm going to see what else I have in my pull-down menu. So I'm going to go to apple. So now what do you think we're going to see?
Apples.
An apple and?
A carrot.
A carrot. Holy moly, look at that. So up until this point, we've only been drawing with like circles and rectangles, and that's kind of boring. So today we are going to learn how to use something called a sprite. And with a sprite, we can set our animations to really be anything that we want to. Okay? So again, we have, I don't think there's anything else. And nope, that's it. Those are the 2 animations that are loaded. Awesome. So, okay. So as always, go ahead and hit finish when you're done. And we are going to move on to the next thing, which is really slow, but that's okay. So we are going to do a quick video all about sprites.
If you want to animate a single shape in GameLab, you can quickly end up with a lot of variables to manage. You'll need one to store the shape's X position, one to store the Y position, one for width, one for height, and as you add fills, strokes, and other characteristics, you'll need even more variables. If you want to animate additional shapes, you'll need to create a whole other set of variables. All this can quickly lead to problems with organization and clarity in your code. So what's an elegant and manageable way to keep track of all these variables? The solution is to start animating with sprites. Think of a sprite like a character that lives inside your animations. At first, a sprite will pretty much just be a rectangle. But the beauty of a sprite is what it has going on behind the scenes. When you make a sprite, it comes with properties. which are variables that store the characteristics of a sprite. Properties describe things like where the sprite's located on the screen, what it looks like, and what color it is. To create a new sprite, use the Create Sprite command. You can assign your sprite a label just like you would a variable. This code is creating a new sprite and giving it the label MySprite, but you can label it anything you'd like. Just like shapes, sprites need to be drawn to the screen. Use the Draw Sprites command to see your sprite appear in the display area. You can control a sprite's properties in your program by using dot notation. First, connect the label of the sprite to the label of the property with a dot. Now you can use this just like a variable. So for example, mysprite.x gets 200 will update the sprite's x location to 200, and mysprite.width gets 50 will update the sprite's width to 50. The next time you call draw sprites, these new property values will be used to draw the sprite. Sprites can have tons of properties. As you get familiar with them, they'll give you powerful controls over what your sprites look like and can do.
All right. Ooh, exciting stuff. All right, let me get out of this. Go back here. Awesome sauce. All right, so once you're done watching the video, we are going to go ahead and continue. So again, at this point, we will be using sprites to help simplify our code. Now, let me go make sure I do a start over because this is done from last semester. Just give me a moment. All right, so let's take a look. Creating sprites. var sprite equals create sprite creates a new sprite and assigns it to a variable. The default name is sprite, so you'll want to change it to something more meaningful. So the biggest problem that people have when they're doing sprites is that they don't rename them. My suggestion, always name it for the closest thing that it's going to be. All right, so drawing sprites. Sprites may only appear on the screen when you draw them there. You need a draw sprite or it will draw to create this. All right, so do this. The program includes comments that will let you know where to place your code, but otherwise is blank. Your program should look like the image on the right. So that's what it should look like. Add var sprite, create sprite 200, 200 under the comment creating sprites. Okay, let's do that. Then we are going to draw sprite under the comment. Hint, sprites are drawn from their center, which means that the center of the square, not the top left corner, is at 200, 200. Okay, so this sounds simple enough. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So the first thing I want to do is to create my sprite. So I'm going to create my sprite in the sprite drawer. I'm going to drag that over, and then it says, I'm going to call this sprite gray because I know it's just going to be a gray box according to the picture that I saw. All right, so now I've created my sprite and I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Now nothing happens. There's an error. What did I forget to do? What do you have to do when you are using sprites? You said it in the video and I said it prior to doing this. Sprite, what do we have to do before I can see my sprite on the screen, guys? Draw sprite. Fantastic. Okay, that is in your world drawer. So now I have to draw my sprite. And once I do that, reset and run, shabam-a-bam, there is my sprite. Very boring at this point. I'll give you that. It's just a gray square, but that's okay. We'll make them a little more exciting as we continue to move on. So we're going to go ahead and hit finish on bubble 3. And we'll move on to bubble number 4. Now I'm going to have to start over because, again, this is the same teacher account I used last semester, but it's okay. Okay, this program, you should create 2 new sprites, one on the left and one on the right. But right now, it's only drawing 1. So if I run it, we can see that it's only drawing 1. So you don't have to add any new code. We just need to rearrange the code that is already here to make sure both sprites appear. So, taking a look at the code, what do you think is the problem? Remember, computers read code from line 1 down. What should be rearranged here so I can see both of my squares just like in the image? Either unmute or put it in the chat.
Draw a sprite.
Where should I move draw sprite to?
Under the second variable.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to put this down under the second variable according to Matthew. So let's see what happens. So I have created left sprite, right sprite, draw sprites. If I hit run, bam, there they are. So ladies and gentlemen, again, when we are making sprites, it is very important that if I want those sprites to be drawn, I have to give it a draw sprite command. And if that draw sprite command, just like we saw before, is above one of my sprites that I'm creating, it's not going to get created. Because again, computers are kind of silly, they're kind of dumb, they only do what you tell them to do. So if you don't tell it to draw the sprite, it's not going to. Seems kind of weird, but that's just how they work. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit finish on bubble 4. Start over. And again, you're not going to have to do start overs. I just have to do mine because I have stuff in here from last semester. Okay, adding animations. This is where it kind of gets a little more fun. This program draws 4 sprites on the screen, and one of them has an animation from the animation tab. The animation tab is right here on top of our preview grid. It's right here. So it says code, animation. We'll get to that in a minute. This program, okay, do this. Run the code and see what happens. Look in the animation tab to see which animations are available to you. Feel free to alter your animations or choose a new one. Use the set animation command to change the look of your other sprites. Fantastic. So first of all, let's see how this looks. So I have 1, 2, 3 squares, which isn't very exciting. But then I have this kind of cute little pink alien here on the bottom, which is kind of nice. All right, so I want to set an animation to my other sprites, which is cool. But in order to do that, I have to see what is available to me. In order to do that, I'm going to go into my animation tab. In my animation tab, I have a bunny. I have the alien, which I already used. I have a bunny, I have a flybot, I have a plane. And by the way, if you don't like any of these and you wanted to add a new one, all you would have to do is hit the plus on the bottom, and then an animation library comes up. So let's say, for example, oh, I don't know, what am I into today? I mean, like hunter-killer robots, right? Like, who doesn't like a good hunter-killer robot? I wonder if they have an evil-looking robot. Whatever. He's kind of evil looking. He's got like little horns on him. I mean, he's not really evil looking, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and load him in. So that's how you do that. If you want a new one, you just hit the spring thing on the bottom. All right. So I'm going to go back to my code. And now I need to, and again, if I run this, I only have my little pink alien showing up. How do I turn my other sprites into animations? I am going to grab sprite set animation. I'm going to pull that in. All right, so now I'm going to do these in order. So that's be top left. So remember, your variable has to be exact. All I'm doing is copying and pasting. And then I want to set my animation. And maybe I want to turn it into my little spring bot. And I'm going to go ahead and hit reset run. And now my top one is this cute little spring bot. And now I am going to do my top right sprite. Again, I'm just copying and pasting the name of the variable because those always have to be exact. And then I'm going to set it at a different animation. And maybe I want this one to be a bunny. So I'm going to go ahead and set bunny, reset run, and now I have my Springbot, I have a bunny, and I have my lovely little pink alien. And I'm going to set my last one. I'm going to pull my sprite in. I am going to copy the name of the sprite. The name of the variable, my bad. I'm just going to paste that in. And then maybe I want to set this one to be a plane, because why not? Reset run. And now each one of my sprites has been assigned an animation. So now I don't have to just animate with like squares and circles. I have that whole animation library available to me for my programs, which is kind of cool. So you'll notice I created my sprites. I set an animation for each of my sprites, and then the very last line of code tells the computer to draw the sprites. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. Actually, let me go back. Were there any issues or questions about what I did? Issues or questions with Bubble 5? Okay. So again, create the sprite and set an animation to the sprite and then draw the sprite. That is the order that we go in. All right. So we have another quick video.
Hi, I'm Aston Motes, and I was the first software engineer hired at Dropbox. I also work with an organization called DevColor. DevColor is a nonprofit that advances the careers of Black software engineers. Sprites make it much easier to organize your code, but visually, they're still just rectangles. To make our creations come to life, we'll want to add images to our sprites. We'll start with a simple program you've seen before that creates a single rectangular sprite. Before we can turn this rectangle into something more fun, we need to tell GameLab about the image we want to use. All images and drawings you add to your project are created and managed in the Animation tab. To switch back and forth between your code and the animations, use a toggle in the upper left corner. To add a new animation, click the plus sign. This will open a library of images that are already built into GameLab. From the library, you can browse the categories to find what you're looking for. Once you've selected an image, it'll be added to your project and shown on the left. If you like, you can also change the name of your image. So, here we've added an image in the Animation tab, and we have code that creates a basic sprite. Now we'll need to put those two together and tell the computer that we want this particular sprite. We'll use the set animation block to do this. First, we'll use the name of our sprite and the name of the image we selected in the Animation tab. Now when we run our program, the sprite will be drawn with the image we selected. All of the sprite's properties can still be modified as usual to do things like moving across the screen. You're not limited to the images that come built into GameLab. You can also choose to upload an image from your computer or draw something yourself. In fact, you can edit any image in the Animation tab using the pixel editor. Using different commands in the pixel editor, you can easily draw, erase, or modify images. To adjust the dimensions of an image, just make changes in the menu on the right side. It's also just one click to flip your image to face the opposite direction. If you like an image you've made but want to make some changes, just make a copy. There are lots of helpful little tools in the pixel editor. Play around with them on your own and see what they do. Back in your code, the drop-down of animations makes it easy to pick which animation your sprite should use until you find the perfect look. Adding images or your own drawings to sprites lets you unleash your creativity and make your programs really your own. Let's get to it.
All right, so kind of already went over some of that in the last bubble, but that's okay. As far as the moving of objects, we have not gotten there yet, but hopefully you're getting an idea of where we're going with these animations, because eventually we do want to create that platformer game thing, and obviously things have to move in a game, otherwise it would be like the most boring game ever. All right, so once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and hit continue. All right, so for bubble 7, let me start over. All right, so debug some sprites. This program shows 3 sprites on the screen, but it's not working yet. The wrong sprite is in the front. The one sprite's animation isn't showing up. Do this. Run the code, see what happens, and fix the 2 problems with the code. Hint, just like shapes, sprites are drawn in the order that they are created. Awesome. Okay, so let's see what happens originally. We want the pop on the left-hand side, the ice cream cone on the right-hand side, and the words get ready on the front. Let's see what happens when I run this. All right, get ready is behind. The ice cream is on the wrong side, and then the pop isn't showing up at all. So we have quite a bit of work to do here. So let's see what is going on. So the first thing, or the easiest thing I think to handle first, is the order. Because again, this message, if it's on top, has to be the last layer that gets put on. So that means I need to reorganize. And I am going to set this last, where it says message, get ready, text, get ready. Okay. I'm going to put that the last thing that gets drawn because it is the last layer I want. Remember, layer, 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 it reads from top to bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and hit reset and run. Still didn't, oh, that's because I actually have to pull this down with it. Duh. I have to create it. There we go. All right, so now that is where it should be. So that is the easiest part for me, is to make sure my layering is correct. Okay, the second thing that I need to worry about is the fact that this ice cream cone is not in the correct spot. All right, so that being said, dessert. Oh, okay, so I created the variable dessert, but then I used the word drink. Okay, so maybe that is the problem. Reset and run. Okay, I think that's right. Yep, cool. All right, so there you go. So we have our drink created first. We set the animation to soda. We have a dessert created second. We set the animation to ice cream. Then we have our message created last, and then we set the animation to text get ready. Okay, so that should just about do it, and it looks correct to me. Awesome sauce. All right, any issues or questions with what I did, how I did it?
No.
All righty, moving on. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, part number 8. This is kind of a drag and drop. You'll sort of like decide what code creates which images. So that's for you to do on your own. Bubble number 9, A through F. These are just some more sprite ideas, sprite animations, sprite order, sprite name. You'll be working on this. And then item number 10. Come on, let's get there. My computer's running slow. You will want to create this image with the little crab with the fork and the knife using the information that you have here. As always, my challenges, which is our last bubble, will be optional. But again, you may want to consider doing at least part A, because that will show you how to use online images for your animations, if that's something that's going to interest you for later on. All right, are there any issues or questions at this time about 8, 9, or 10? All right, you have the remainder of the time to work, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, if you have any issues or questions, please ask.